Okay, let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
If you are a living thing, you are constantly, and I mean constantly, processing information.
Right. It doesn't matter if you're a cat chasing a laser pointer or, a sunflower tracking the sun.
Movement and response are just. They're the non-negotiable requirements of life. But what we're really diving into today isn't the movement itself, but the hidden stuff, the sophisticated control that makes that movement appropriate and successful and sometimes life-saving.
It's really the difference between just chaotic motion and a controlled, deliberate action.
Okay.
When an organism detects a change in its environment, a stimulus, as we call it, it needs to execute a response that is perfectly timed.
And that takes systems. Systems for speed and other systems for, what, persistence?
Exactly. Incredible speed and incredible persistence.
So that's our mission for this deep dive. We're looking at these dual systems of control and coordination, how animals use these lightning-fast electrical nerves for immediate action.
And then the slower, steady hormones for long-term control.
And for me, this is the most fascinating part. How do plants do it? How do they coordinate growth and respond to touch without a single nerve or muscle cell to their name?
It's a great question. Think about it like this. You're in a crowded library and you need to ask a question.
Right.
The trigger is the question, but the response, the carefully controlled decision to whisper and pick just the right words, that shows a perfectly coordinated system.
It recognizes the context and then moderates the action.
Precisely. That balance of input, integration, and output is our focus today.
So let's start with the system built for pure speed, the animal nervous system.
Right. And here, control and coordination rely almost entirely on nervous and muscular tissues.
So where does this whole relay race even begin?
It all starts with information acquisition. We use these specialized neural tips called receptors.
And they're everywhere.
They are, but they're often concentrated in our sense organs. You have gustatory receptors for taste, olfactory for smell, and critically pain and heat receptors all over your skin.
They're the front line then, detecting that initial stimulus.
They are. And once that info is detected, it has to be translated into a language the body can actually use.
Because it's not a copper wire, right? It's a chemical thing that becomes an electrical wave.
Exactly. When the stimulus hits the dendritic tip of a nerve cell, a neuron, it kicks off a chemical reaction.
Okay.
It's pretty technical, but basically it creates a temporary electrical shift across the neuron's membrane. Think of it like a domino effect. This little electrical impulse then shoots down the entire length of the cell.
But the nerve cells don't actually touch. There's that tiny, crucial gap between them.
That gap is the synapse, and the electrical impulse, it can't jump it.
So it hits a wall.
It does. So at the end of the axon, the electrical signal has to convert back into chemistry. It triggers the release of these specialized chemicals and neurotransmitters.
Like a secret chemical handshake.
That's a great way to put it. Those chemicals float across the gap and bind to the next cell. And this is key. Only the cell with the right receptor can, read the message.
And that handshake starts the whole electrical impulse all over again in the next cell.
Or it triggers the action, like making a muscle contract. It's a super fast chemical loop.
That system is incredibly fast, but it seems like there's a huge vulnerability there.
How so?
Well, if I touch a hot plate, the time it takes for that signal to go all the way up my spine into my brain for me to think, ouch, hot, and then send a command back. That's too long. I'd get burned.
You would. And that is the exact evolutionary problem the body solved. Conscious, deliberative thought. It's complicated, it involves huge networks of neurons, and it just takes time.
So for survival, we needed a shortcut.
We needed the reflex arc.
The ultimate shortcut.
It is. The sensory nerves from your hand don't wait to get to the conscious parts of your brain. They go into the spinal cord, and right there, they form a simple, direct connection, an arc with the motor nerve that goes straight back to your arm muscles.
So you pull your hand away before your brain has even fully processed what happened.
The response is executed before the information has even finished its journey.
So the action is complete, and then the brain gets the memo about the pain.
Exactly. It's a marvel of pure efficiency, evolved for the most time-critical threats.
Okay, so we've covered the shortcuts. Let's talk about the main command center, the human brain. The brain and the spinal cord make up the central nervous system, the CNS.
Right, and this is the integration hub for everything we consciously choose to do, our voluntary actions.
Things like walking, talking, deciding to move a chair.
All of that requires the brain to get sensory input, compare it with stored knowledge, make a plan, and send commands back down. And that heavy lifting is mostly done by the forebrain.
The forebrain really is the main thinking part. It has separate areas for sight, smell, hearing, but the magic is in how it manages those signals.
That's the role of the association areas. This is where raw sensory data gets interpreted. You don't just see a red shape. You combine that input with memory and context and think, that's a chair, I know how to walk around it.
That complex integration and decision-making is what makes it so powerful.
And interestingly, the center for things like hunger or the feeling of being full is also located there, a very ancient survival role.
Okay, so that's conscious choice.
Right.
What about all the stuff that keeps us alive without a single thought? The involuntary systems.
You're talking heartbeat, breathing, digestion, your pupils dilating. All the background maintenance, that's largely managed by the midbrain and the hindbrain.
Okay.
The medulla, which is deep in the hindbrain, is basically the regulator for vital things like blood pressure, salivation, even vomiting. It just has to work constantly and reliably.
And what about that uncanny ability we have to, say, walk a straight line or catch a ball? That's a voluntary movement, but I'm definitely not thinking, okay, balance left, now adjust right.
That continuous predictive correction, that is the brilliant job of the cerebellum, also in the hindbrain.
So it's not starting the action.
No, the forebrain does that. The cerebellum is responsible for the precision and the smoothness of that action. It's constantly monitoring your muscles and adjusting them to maintain posture and balance.
So when someone stumbles, it might be the cerebellum being overloaded.
Often, yes. It's been compromised in some way.
Given how important the CNS is, it makes sense that it's so well protected.
Yeah.
The bony skull, the vertebral column.
And that fluid-filled balloon it sits in, that's a crucial shock absorber protecting the delicate neural tissue.
So let's close out this neural chapter. The signal finally reaches the muscle. How does it actually physically shorten the cell?
It's a spectacular piece of cellular engineering. The electrical impulse causes special proteins inside the muscle cells, actin and myosin, to instantly change their shape.
They move.
You can imagine them as tiny molecular ratchets. They slide past each other, creating a pulling force that shortens the entire muscle fiber. That's the physical result of the neural command.
So that electrical signaling is incredibly fast, great for targeted responses. But what happens when you need a signal that has to reach every cell and last for hours?
That is exactly where the nervous system hits its limits. First, the impulse can only travel to cells that are physically connected by neurons. It can't reach every cell. And second,
and this is critical, a neuron needs time to reset itself before it can fire again. You can't just send a continuous, nonstop electrical signal.
So you need another system, something slower but more pervasive, something that can just linger.
And here's where it gets really interesting. You need the chemical coordination system, the endocrine system.
Right.
Specialized glands secrete these powerful chemical compounds called hormones directly into the blood.
And the blood carries them everywhere.
Exactly, allowing them to affect organs far away from where they were released.
The classic example of this has to be adrenaline, the fight or flight hormone.
It's the perfect example. Adrenaline is secreted by the adrenal glands in urgent situations, facing danger, extreme stress, and it prepares the entire body all at once for intense physical exertion.
So what are the actual results of that chemical command?
Well, the heart rate skyrockets, pumping more oxygen to your tissues. Blood supply is chemically redirected away from non-essential things like your skin and digestive system.
And it all gets diverted to the skeletal muscles, straight to them. Your breathing rate increases. It's a masterclass in whole body resource reallocation, all from a single chemical.
Beyond just emergencies, hormones also regulate the long-term stuff. Growth, metabolism, things that need steady coordination.
Absolutely. The thyroid gland needs iodine to make thyroxine, and thyroxine controls the overall metabolism of carbs, proteins, and fats. It ensures balanced growth.
And if you don't have enough iodine, you get goiter.
Exactly. The gland swells trying to compensate. We also see it with the pituitary gland's growth hormone.
Right. And the pancreas secreting insulin to regulate blood sugar.
Which is vital for daily balance. If it fails, that's what leads to diabetes.
And of course, you can't forget the hormones that manage our development over years.
The sex hormones, testosterone and estrogen. Unlike adrenaline's quick burst, these hormones are the ultimate slow burn directors, coordinating the changes of puberty over a decade or more.
So since these hormones are just broadcast everywhere in the blood, how does the body stop itself from being flooded with too much or too little of something?
It uses these really clever feedback mechanisms. It's a perfect example of continuous control.
How does that work?
Well, if your blood sugar rises, The pancreas detects that and releases more insulin. As the sugar level drops, that drop itself is a signal to the pancreas to slow down. It's a self-regulating closed-loop system, like a chemical thermostat.
Okay, so we have fast electrical and persistent chemical signals in animals. But let's get to the real challenge. Plants. No dedicated nervous or muscle tissues at all. Yet they track the sun, they climb walls, they even respond to touch.
Plants are true masters of chemical adaptation. They do use electrical chemical means for communication, believe it or not, but they execute their responses in totally different ways.
And they have two main types of movement.
That's right. The first is that immediate non-growth response, like the sensitive plant mimosa. You touch it, the leaves instantly fold up.
How does that work without muscles?
It's a hydraulic mechanism. The plant achieves it by rapidly changing the water pressure, the turgor in specific cells at the base of the leaf.
So the cells basically deflate.
Instantly. The touch sends an electrical chemical signal from cell to cell, which triggers a rapid exit of water from those specific cells and the leaf groups.
But the second and maybe more fundamental type is that slow directional movement, the tropisms.
Right. Tropisms are all about directional growth. Phototropism is growth toward light,
Which we see in shoots.
Geotropism is the response to gravity roots always grow down, shoots up. And chemotropism is growth towards chemicals, like a pollen tube growing toward an ovule.
And this is all managed by plant hormones, phytohormones. How does the plant make sure the growth is directional?
It's all about differential growth. The key hormone is auxin. It's made at the very tip of the shoot, and it helps cells grow longer.
Yeah.
Now, here's the genius part. If light is hitting the plant from one side, the plant detects this and moves the auxin over to the shady side of the shoot.
So the shady side gets a higher dose of the growth hormone.
Precisely. The cells on the shady side grow longer, faster than the cells on the sunny side, and that forces the entire stem to bend toward the light. It's a slow-motion chemical steering system.
And we see that with tendrils too, right? The part not touching a support grows faster, making it curl around.
Exactly. And you have other hormones too. Gibberellins for stem growth, cytokinins for cell division in fruits and seeds.
And just like us, they must have inhibitors too. Ways to slow things down.
They do. Abscisic acid is a big one. It signals stress and can cause leaves to wilt, which helps conserve resources.
So what does this all mean?
It means we've seen life use two grand integrated strategies to operate. The nervous system gives you fast, targeted electrical signals for immediate threats and conscious thought.
And the hormonal system gives you these pervasive, slow, persistent chemical signals for long-term growth and getting the whole body ready at once.
Whether it's the sheer instantaneous speed of a human reflex arc or the steady, persistent chemical guidance a tiny seedling needs to find sunlight, life depends on integrating these fast and slow channels.
We spent a lot of time on voluntary action, but what really gets me are the involuntary systems.
Yeah.
The medulla controlling your blood pressure, the cerebellum perfecting your posture.
And it's happening constantly. The cerebellum is always making these predictive corrections just to keep you upright and moving smoothly. The medulla is adjusting your blood pressure based on the current situation.
So the final thought is, what constant, complex, immediate corrections might be happening in your body right now that you're totally unaware of?
Exactly. Your precision, your balance, your survival. They are all constantly dependent on these silent command centers that are functioning perfectly just beyond the edge of your conscious awareness.